Hello and welcome to Diminishing Returns, the podcast where three film fans with little practical experience presume to think that they know better than the Hollywood elite.
With myself, Sol, and...
Calvin.
I'm Alan. If Hollywood was a giant alien spaceship, we'd be Jeff Goldblum.
In today's episode, we discuss and pitch sequel ideas to seminal 1996 action blockbuster spectacle Independence Day. To refresh your memory, the story was as follows. On the 2nd of July, a big massive alien spaceship shows up in the sky and 36 smaller but still absolutely massive spaceships are deployed all around Earth. They devastate the world's landmarks with big laser beams killing millions of people in big, fiery explosions. On the 3rd of July, the world's military tries to fight back only to find that the spaceships have force fields and smaller attack ships. Will Smith gets one of these ships to crash and takes the alien to Area 51 where it briefly mind melds with a scientist before being shot dead. The scientist explains that they travel from planet to planet, killing everything and stealing all of the natural resources before moving on. Just like some sort of intergalactic... Starbucks. Am I right? Conveniently enough, it's now Independence Day, and Jeff Goldblum, who's been milling around this whole time by the way, is able to create a computer virus that will bring down the alien force fields because this was the 90s and computers were still made of magic. In order to upload the virus onto the mothership, Will Smith is sent to fly the crashed alien attack craft inside the mothership and to leave a nuclear bomb aboard the ship whilst he's there. The president and some of his mates get into aeroplanes and shoot up the aliens. Randy Quaid kamikaze pilots himself into the energy weapon port of the spaceship over America, and you're meant to be touched by his sacrifice even though he's a character I didn't have to mention until now. America tells the rest of the world about this Death Star-like vulnerability, and the rest of the world kill their spaceships off screen. Everybody on Earth gathers and rejoices. It's a happy ending even though millions, if not billions of people are now dead. As well as just spoiling the entire plot of Independence Day, this episode contains spoilers for Focus, Suicide Squad, Django Unchained, 21 Jump Street, H.G. Wells' novel The War of the Worlds, A Taste of Cherry, and unsurprisingly plenty more for Independence Day. Happy listening.
So today's film is Independence Day.
Yeah.
How do we feel about Independence Day, the original film? It's a spectacular Hollywood film, right?
Yes. Very expensive, made a lot of money. I think at the time of its release, it was the second highest grossing film of all time. Behind Jurassic Park.
Do you actually like it, though? Because
actually, it's very watchable. As a solid action film, it's perfectly fine.
But it's like nearly 3 hours long.
It's not that.
It's not that long. It feels nearly that long. It's a lot longer than I would like a throwaway bit of action to be.
They need to justify the budget. They need to feel epic in some way. But I think it's more just of how it's structured.
Yes.
It feels so long. Because I think it's just a bit over 2 hours. It isn't actually that long. I don't know if it's because the scale is so big, the locations are all over the place. There's a million characters that you've got to try and follow.
When I watched it though, it didn't feel like it was dragging. It felt the time was justified for the plot.
I rewatched it in preparation for this podcast because I hadn't seen it since it was released on video back in 1990.
Well, I also rewatched it. I haven't seen it for a long time. Yeah.
In fact, I remember my cousin and I both got to rent a video. He chose Independence Day. I chose Ace Ventura Goes to Africa or whatever it's called. And we watched them both one night and we both clearly thought Ace Ventura was the superior film, but he was adamant that Independence Day was kind of the better film. It was this, when people pretend to like an art house film that they don't really get. Because we were both about 6 or 7, he kind of thought Independence Day was a grown-up film that he had to pretend that he liked. I still think that Ace Ventura 2 is the superior of the two films, and I'm not necessarily someone who thinks that that's a great film.
Well, Ace Ventura 2 is definitely better than Independence Day. I'm not going to argue.
Yeah.
more entertaining. Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think very much of it, to be honest.
I think it's. I mean, because it's like how you describe.
It has its moments.
James Bond films. It's that sort of like bank holiday. Like it's probably on ITV2.
Yeah.
You can just sit and turn your brain off and enjoy it. I find it interesting that it started up a resurgence of
disaster films.
Yeah.
Which hadn't been really around since the 70s. And then all of a sudden we have Volcano and Dante's Peak.
What was it the first in that line then? When was Roland Emmerich's other stuff? When was Armageddon?
98, 99.
Was that after?
Yeah. That was like the next one, really. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think it represents Hollywood in the mid-90s, that kind of action.
There were a lot of those films, and it's very much an area I'm quite ignorant on, actually. I haven't seen Tornado or Volcano or any of these big action spectacles.
We've got ammunition for future podcasts then.
And I think
a lot to talk about there.
It was the last we saw of this generation of practical effects.
Yeah.
Done very well.
I will say the
Really
effects
well.
are pretty cool.
And that huge budget practical effects, which you will never see again.
Yeah.
And that CGI, within 5 years, that was gone. And so it is sort of a marker of its time, I think. And as a quintessential piece of Hollywood history. Even if it's not necessarily an amazing film, it's representative.
I think it does its job well. I mean, it's very president going up in a bloody fighter jet.
It is
so American, isn't it?
It's so American, right wing, like average, blue collar guys taking on the alien. It's
I will say, it's a film that I can see why someone would enjoy it. It's not that I'm just baffled as to how it operates as entertainment. It's just not my cup of tea.
It does what it does. I'm surprised that it took them this long to get around to a sequel. I guess we'll talk about that more as we go on. I'd be interested to go onto the street and sort of ask the average Joe, because it was second highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah.
Pretty much everyone went to go and see it. I don't think average person on the street would remember any characters' names. I think
they would
be able
remember
to tell
Will
you-
Smith was in it.
They'd remember Will Smith was in
and
it.
maybe Jeff Goldblum.
And the president.
But
and
there's no
aliens.
names. Yeah, there's no standout kind of piece, is there?
No.
Who's that guy who talks like this? Who I found really
Harvey Firestein.
Yeah, now what was going on there?
He's brilliant. He's Robin Williams' brother in Mrs. Doubtfire.
But that character is just... Oh my God, I gotta call my mother. It's such a terrible character. Stereotype.
Roland Emmerich is gay, so...
Oh, well, that explains everything.
Maybe they're friends. I don't know. I always feel so bad that it's like a joke that he dies, because he's like in the car, isn't he? And then the Empire State Building blows up and he's like, oh crap. And that's it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny because this camp man died. We don't need to feel sorry.
Well, that is a cinematic cliche that if he was a British guy, he would say, oh, bugger. If it were Will Smith's character, he would say...
ruined my throat doing Harvey Firestein impression. Okay.
If it were Will Smith's character, he'd say,
Damn!
Oh, damn, yeah.
So we all...
Jeffrey!
So I don't know what that is. But, so we all agree that, out of all the characters, Will Smith is the one...
It established him as a star, a Hollywood star. Bad Boy sort of set up, I guess, but that made him a Hollywood A-lister.
And obviously he doesn't feel any sort of, residual goodwill for it, considering he's not come back for the sequel. And I think it took them so long to get around to this because of his reluctance.
I was going to say, I think they've been holding out for him to agree to do it, quite frankly, and they've just reached a point of, he's obviously never going to agree to do it.
I bet he did it. I bet he turns up in it. It's all a ruse.
Well, apparently they've killed off his character, off screen, which sounds like a very disappointing. Okay. I don't know if he will do it. I just want to segue a little bit into just talking about the career of Will Smith.
Okay.
He's one of those actors.
He's fascinating. Yeah.
He's one of those actors who sort of shuns the idea of franchises. Other than Men in Black, I don't think he's ever done a sequel.
Bad Boys 2.
And Bad Boys. Those are the only ones that he makes sequel for. They could do 12 iRobots.
Oh, every film he makes has a sequel
Hancock.
in development for about 12 years. There's Hancock 2 is still in development and never going to happen. I Am Legend had about 2 or 3 different sequel pitches moving forward at one point. I think they've just decided to outright reboot it, start again. Men in Black, it took them, 10 years to get from Men in Black 2 to Men in Black 3?
Yeah.
now they're just pushing forward with a franchise reboot again, because they're obviously not going to be able to get him back. And if they do get him back, it's not going to be a profitable film because he will cost more than that film can possibly stand to make.
I find that interesting when actors sort of will deliberately seem to shun these kind of... Because he's going to be in Suicide Squad, which is coming up soon, which seems to be a deliberate attempt after the failure of that one that he did with his son.
Especially given that he turned down Django Unchained in his words because he didn't feel that Django was the protagonist and the lead. He felt that Christoph Waltz came and stole all of his scenes, which there's an argument to be made for. But he's then gone and taken a supporting role in Suicide Squad, and not, from what I can gather, anything close to a scene-stealing supporting role. The scenes are clearly going to be stolen, if by anyone, by the Joker and by Harley Quinn.
It was ages until I realised he was even in it. Like, you look at like the promotional photos, and it's like literally everyone else in there is more eye-catching than he is.
Yeah. Maybe, I suppose, there's a potential for him to get his own spin-off film playing that guy.
I find it interesting because that's him piggybacking on comic book movies are so in right now. You could probably put anyone in one of them and it'd be a success. So I just find that interesting. I mean, he did say that After Earth, the M. Night Shyamalan film, he said that was the biggest mistake of his career. So I don't know if he's sort of pedaling and realising, because he also released that In Focus film, which no one saw, and it's
Focus. I saw
Focus.
that.
Alan saw that. Was it good? It was Margot Robbie was in it. It was going to be Harley Quinn.
It was really by the numbers con man film. It was everything you put in a con film. That was it. It was like watching an episode of Hustle.
It's interesting though, because a similar star, his credibility has fallen significantly more than Will Smith's has, but Jim Carrey used to be this huge star, and again, he didn't do sequels. It was part of his mantra. He did Ace Ventura 2 because he was contractually obligated to do it when he signed on to do the first one, and he wasn't a big star at the time. But ever since then, he's just not done sequels. But most of his big hits have had sequels produced without his involvement, and Will Smith doesn't seem to have that. With Jim Carrey, there was Son of the Mask. There was Dumb and Dumberer before his career went down the toilet, and they made another Dumb and Dumber sequel. Evan Almighty.
Evan Almighty.
Yeah. There's a long line of disappointing sequels to his films, and there just isn't that with Will Smith's work. They've started Independence Day, if he doesn't turn up in the new one at any point, is going to be one of the first. There's talk of a new Bad Boys film with a new cast. There's talk of Men in Black 4 with a new cast, but now they're officially moving ahead with that 21 Jump Street crossover, and I think there's a good chance he'll make a little cameo in that in the same capacity that Johnny Depp did in the first one.
Well, I mean, he just is in a place right now where he needs to restore some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I really think he's a fool for turning down Django Unchained, because when that came along, it struck me like that's the film you do to restore a bit of credibility.
Totally.
And he turned it down.
But even turning down Independence Day Resurgence, I find it strange that he would go to Suicide Squad, which is so different a property, instead of returning to something that he actually made notable. Like Independence Day sort of like falls on him. Yeah. Like he's the star of that movie.
They're in a similar sort of position where they're getting to an age where you can't play those same roles anymore. Yeah. You have to transition. You have to do the Matthew McConaughey and transition into proper roles, or you sort of
Django Unchained struck me like his opportunity.
Cage role and do the same thing, but at lower budgets.
Well, it's like Liam Neeson is that same sort of family man in all of his films where he beats up foreign people.
I mean, do you think we're going to start seeing a glut of Will Smith sequels down the line?
Possibly.
Hitch 2. Hitch has a glitch.
I think he is in a bit of a crisis, especially after Focus, which is sort of... Because it was obvious, like, they can't sell a film based on Will Smith being in it anymore. He's had that M. Night Shyamalan film and Focus, so he needs to be in some kind of franchise.
Will Smith's still got a lot of draw, surely.
Well, not according to those two films.
Yeah, but it's just a shit film. It's a shit film.
Yeah,
his name is
he has more draw than most actors.
Wild
I'd say
West
that
was a shit film, but it still made a lot of money.
£7.
Still made a lot of money.
Wild Wild West had a rap song, and I think that's probably the difference.
Oh, why doesn't he do the theme songs?
Why doesn't he?
Did he do a theme song for Independence Day?
No.
I missed that over the end. I guess he probably wasn't. He didn't have the star power then.
He didn't even do one for Men in Black 3, which was massively disappointing.
Does he even sing anymore? Does he do that?
He did an album around the time that Hitch came out.
Really?
So yeah.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah.
And I think it was a lot more of an attempt to do actual music than.
To be honest, I don't think I could name a Will Smith song that isn't Men in Black, Wild Wild West That's it. That's all I know.
Really?
Apart from Boom
Boom
Shake the
Boom
Room.
Shake
Yeah,
the Room,
that's,
yeah.
that's going way back.
He's like sort of described as like the whitest of rappers. Isn't
Parents
he?
just don't understand.
Yeah. Girls ain't nothing but trouble.
That's true.
Yeah.
So Will Smith isn't in this.
That's not a redundant conversation we just had.
As far as we know, I thought that was quite interesting. So Will Smith isn't in this. How do you take forward? Is it like doing an Indiana Jones film without Indiana Jones? Is it like...
You put Jeff Goldblum in it. That's what you do.
There's enough big stars.
That's how you solve that problem.
Yeah.
Really? But, I mean, there are different levels of star power.
I
don't think
think
that Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum are quite on the same level as
But,
Will Smith.
I mean, I think Independence Day is the draw here. I don't think the draw is the original cast.
Yeah.
I think it's... remember that film that you probably have a great deal of nostalgia for from, a few years ago.
Especially when we're talking about 20-year gap.
Yeah.
You can... If you're doing a film 2 years later and you haven't got the original cast, it's like, well, why are you doing this? It's going to be a reboot of the whole thing, isn't it? It's not a sequel. It's obviously it's a sequel.
Yeah,
but I mean,
and
it's gonna.
And if you're doing a sequel to an intimate drama or something, and you haven't got the original cast, it's a problem. But it's a sequel to an alien blowing up stuff movie. It's the draw was never Will Smith to begin with. Really, he just happened to be the breakout star within this action
exactly.
spectacle.
He wasn't the star name then. They made him a star. He wasn't a box office draw.
True.
Not to that extent.
True.
There's Harvey Fierstein on the title card.
Is he? Does he? I didn't pay attention. Does he?
He's in it for about... He's in 2 scenes.
I know, but people would maybe know him from...
No, they wouldn't. They'd know his voice.
Yeah, he was in like Mulan. He like voiced...
I have no idea what he's done. That's all I know.
He originated the Divine role from Hairspray on Broadway.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can he sing? With that voice?
With that voice, it's...
Tom Waits style, no?
Is that voice real, or has he put it on?
Is it like Gilbert Gottfried?
Okay, shall we get into the pictures?
Yes.
Sol, would you like to...
Okay, so yeah, Independence Day, the way I see it is it's clearly a rip-off of The War of the Worlds. Mm-hmm. Some might argue that it's a modern-day retelling or interpretation of The War of the Worlds. I don't think it was meant to be a modern retelling the same way that you get modern retellings of Frankenstein. It's a rip-off of The War of the Worlds, down to the virus taking them out at the end. It's quite fascinating, really. It distills that story down to about 20 minutes of plot, only to stretch it out to, what is it, over 2 hours? When even the 1953 film struggled to get that plot up to 85 minutes.
You just shove in loads of characters. Like, overload people with characters.
Yeah.
You've got Will Smith and his family drama. You've got Jeff Goldblum and his dad. You've got
You waste time following a dog just to make sure it gets out all right.
Oh, that scene when the Grey Fox is like, oh no, what's the dog called? It's like Bongo or something. Bongo! And
it's not called Bongo.
It's something like that. What is it? I need to look this up. That scene is ridiculous. Also, that getting in that tiny little door in the tunnel when the fire is like, as if that's going to save them. Sorry, I think that scene is absolutely ridiculous.
I agree.
But is the film renowned for its laws of physics? It pretty much does whatever it wants.
Oh, so it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I thought it was close to 3 if you were to round up.
I wonder if the dog will still be up. No, it can't be.
The dog?
Will Smith's son.
It would be an old dog. I think it would be dead.
I don't know if he's working anymore.
It'd be...
Boomer.
Boomer, that's what
okay, it's not a million miles from Bongo. So, my original idea for this sequel was to basically rip off one of the many unofficial sequels to The War of the Worlds that came out. There were a great deal of books published that were just knockoff sequels. I think it recently went into the public domain, and a few other books have started to appear, and films and things. The problem I had with that was that when I started looking into them, none of them were particularly interesting. They were just very contrived setups to go back into fighting the Martians again. And so I gave up on that idea. Then I thought, what is the best adaptation of The War of the Worlds? It's clearly Jeff Wayne's musical album. So the best way I see it to continue this franchise is with Jeff Wayne's Independence Day, a concept album based on the film that tells the story through music. Obviously, you need a strong narrator. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds had Richard Burton, who is a phenomenal voice. Independence Day has Jeff Goldblum. He's got a distinctive voice. He's your narrator.
He'd be such an annoying narrator. Bizarre intonations and pauses.
Yeah, and you build some music around it with weird time steps and stuff. Brilliant. Now, the benefits of this are it won't be boring, because when they're doing boring stuff and nothing's happening, there'll be music to make it interesting, or you can just skip to the next track if you want, or whatever. I'm not convinced anyone actually wants a sequel to Independence Day. I think it's a weird, like, nostalgic, masturbatory act. It's this weird sort of, this isn't as much of a gamble on their part. Jeff Wayne is desperate to milk his album for all that it's worth. He's been milking that teat dry since it came out. Since he made a Gladiator concept album that didn't do very well, and he realised that he kind of has a one-hit wonder on his hands. Mm-hmm. So, he's been touring that album. He re-recorded the thing with Liam Neeson, inexplicably replacing Richard Burton. It's the exact same thing, but re-recorded. There was a video game at one point, I think. There was a CGI animated film that's currently stuck in development hell, which probably will never see the light of day. So he'd be up for it.
Would the estate of H.G. Wells be up for it?
It's in the public domain, I think.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. I know Spielberg's film War of the Worlds was called War of the Worlds because Jeff Wayne, I believe, owned copyright over the War of the Worlds.
Interesting.
But I'm pretty sure it's in the public domain. There's a lot of those Asylum-type companies making War of the Worlds films.
Yes, you're right.
And it'd be great. You could tour it like on the stage with graphics and effects like the War of the Worlds. And going back to what we were talking about, Will Smith hasn't done a tie-in rap song in a long, long time. Not since... I think there was a vague attempt to tie one of his songs in with Hitch, but I don't think it was a rap about the events of Hitch. So yeah, not since Men in Black 2, I believe, has he actually done a rap song. Obviously, one of the songs on this is going to be a Will Smith rap. It's got to be. Also, the War of the Worlds, the concept album, is genuinely quite creepy at times. It's genuinely a very atmospheric, interesting take on the book, and it is by far the best adaptation of that book I've seen. It's one of the few books I've actually read. So I think there's a lot of scope to make Independence Day a genuinely scary, thrilling ride and experience. Especially given that, it is such an American, let's rally ourselves up and get all into how great America is. I mean, music's a big part of that. You work some American national anthems in throughout the score and what have you. I just think it'd be very straightforward and it would kind of write itself. You have, track 1, The Eve of the War, brackets, the 3rd of July. Track 2, Hippies on the Skyscraper. Track 3, Boom, Bang, Boom. Track 4, The Dog Survives. Track 5, Stephen Hiller has a fight. You just work your way through the film. And yeah, that's
interesting.
That's me.
So it would be a stage thing? Or...
I think it would almost inevitably become a stage thing when Jeff Wayne finished selling copies of the album, finished selling the B-side, the remnants of the cutting room floor a few years later.
I think that's really interesting though, to because I'm fascinated by that Spider-Man Broadway thing, taking an action movie and putting it on stage.
Yeah, what they did with the stage version of his album, my understanding is, in fact, one of the reasons I think that they bothered to re-record it with Liam Neeson was so that they had access, 1, to people who were still alive, and 2, to more up-to-date musical tracks. And I'm pretty sure they had a hologram of Liam Neeson that came out on stage and did stuff, and then Donovan or someone would run around and interact with it. But you could probably get Will Smith to sit in a studio for a day and make a hologram out of it. I think he'd go for it, especially if you put his kid in it somewhere. It'll...
I'm amazed his kid isn't in this one.
Willow's got a music career, hasn't she? She can be backing vocals on something. So that's my pitch.
That's cool.
Concept album.
I think it would be cool.
I think that's really cool.
You could actually really do something interesting with that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it would. It's one of those things that, you say, a one-hit wonder for Jeff Wayne. It's would it work? So it's it would be interesting, but would it be entertaining? It was would it all just sort of fall apart?
I think it'd be entertaining. Show. Whether or not it would hold up as a valid work of art is another question. But the same can be said of the first film. This is the thing. You're not playing with something on a pedestal. It's Independence Day. You can fuck it up if you want. It's not that good. So Do what you want with it. Anyway, moving on. I believe you have a pitch, Calvin.
Yes, I do have a pitch. Mine is sort of based on taking the whole sort of... Because rewatching the film, I was astonished at just how overly patriotic it was. Bill Pullman's speech where... Is it a Walt Whitman thing that he's... the speech, we shall not go quietly into the night, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's Walt Whitman, I think. Just super, super patriotic. That fascinated me. And then also, as we talked about Will Smith's career, that also fascinated me. So my pitch is sort of taking the Will Smith character and some of the other characters and sort of doing it sort of Indiana Jones sort of thing where it's so this isn't Aliens. This is... The title is Labor Day. So and it's going to involve Will Smith's character in sort of supernatural. There are ghosts. Okay, so yeah, if Independence Day was Aliens, Labor Day would find Will Smith's character from the first movie come face to face with the paranormal, and ghosts from the 1880s start to appear and start killing senior corporation leaders, including the boss of Vivica Fox's character from the first movie, because she's in some office environment now. She's recently got promoted to a senior manager level, and her boss is killed. But, no one's really investigating. It's all these strange suicides or whatever, but she's suspected something, and she's mates with Jeff Goldblum, and I know that this technically isn't his, in Independence Day, he's a climatologist or something, isn't he? Or
there's a scene where he gets angry because they're throwing away a plastic cup or something.
It's this is not his remit, but he's the smartest person that Vivica and Will know. So they bring in Jeff Goldblum as a favour. And the trio investigate, and Goldblum's dad is still here, because you've got to have that.
He'd all be dead now if it wasn't for my David.
That guy.
Not racist at all.
And so they discover that ghosts, led by socialist leader Matthew Maguire, who was very instrumental in the bring about of Labor Day, they're revolting because in this modern era, people are spending too much time at work and not adhering to the 8 hours work, 8 hours recreation, and 8 hours rest that Maguire and his fellow socialist workers fought for. As such, they're taking out every person in a position of power in every corporation in the country because they feel like people are too pressured now to stay in the office until God knows when. The gang realise that this means that the ghost will always be killing someone, because whenever they kill someone else is meaning that eventually they will get to Vivica A. Fox's senior manager character, bringing it into a personal sort of space for Will Smith. So they've investigated this, and the ghosts appear. There's action happens. They get into a tight spot and they think it's all over, but then the ghosts vanish because the ghosts can only be active for 8 hours a day. So they have to adhere to the 8 hours work, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest rule of Matthew Maguire. This means that our heroes have just 16 hours left to work out how to defeat the ghosts. And this involves an invention by Jeff Goldblum. We can tie in the alien technology from the first one here, maybe, to send Will Smith into the paranormal plane of existence and do battle with the ghosts.
I like how the ghosts, they can only work 8 hours, but they don't do shifts. They all work the exact same 8 hours.
What if a ghost enjoys killing people? It's like their recreation time.
It's to teach humanity a lesson, because we've all become... So, you can call it Labor Day, you can release it on Labor Day. And it's a very right-wing message, much like the first one.
Is it? Is it right-wing message to not work as much and...
because
they kill the ghosts are the villains.
Yes.
The
evil socialists.
And
they
save the day.
With the socialists.
They save the day.
They were the villains.
They save the day by pulling a 16-hour shift as well. So it's a very, very right-wing message.
Yeah. Is it because do they win when the ghosts all go on benefits? That was good.
I like that.
That was because then that would be in the next one. You'd have Valentine's Day, or I don't know, and
what little flying babies shooting arrows and making everyone fall in love.
You could have monsters or gods or something. You can do it for every day. It's brilliant. They keep doing all this romantic comedy nonsense about. New Year's Day. You can do it, but just do it as an
Leap Day.
That was Martin Luther King.
And I also learned a lot about Labor Day.
Yeah, it's clearly.
Because it is like, it's such an. I know that our equivalent is basically like May Day.
Is it?
This is what Wikipedia told me. So, but Labor Day is such like, I think of America when I hear that.
Yeah.
Like Independence Day, I'm not. I'm sure other countries do have their own Independence.
Oh,
Days.
most countries have an Independence Day. We don't
When
because we're
when
the
they
ones
kicked the
that
British
yeah, we're the ones celebrating
when they
getting
ran
away
out
from
of
it.
nutmeg or tin or coal or whatever it is, we were stripping them off. Very good.
I like it. And that leaves you. Alan.
Me? Okay. So we talked about Independence Day as being the sort of quintessential Hollywood product. So I've gone to do the exact opposite.
Okay.
Just as a side note, I was talking to my brother about this yesterday, talking about what we were doing. And he said his theory on Independence Day is that it's actually a really anti-American film. A bit like Avatar is. Like it's kind of its disguised.
Trojan horse.
But this superpower comes in to just take over.
Yeah.
And essentially guerrilla tactics to, flying a plane into a structure to destroy they were the terrorist act, So I thought that was quite an interesting sort of take on it. I think this is a very sort of hypocritical Hollywood thing where they want to be the underdog but this American idea of the trouble is, and that's why you need aliens, for Americans to be like, yes, we're fighting against and we rise up and we're the Independence Day, but they are the superpower. So you have to have something out of this world, literally, to dominate them. So there you go, just a side note. Okay, so in those terms, my un-Hollywood pitch is it's going to be the most un-Hollywood film I could figure out. Now, have you ever heard of a director called Abbas Kiarostami?
I'm afraid not.
He's a very well-known director, but very much in the art house independent world, and certainly not Hollywood. He's an Iranian director. Won the Palme d'Or about 20 years ago. Very, very good director. Like I really like his films, but
What did he win the Palme d'Or for?
A Taste of Cherry.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. But I would really recommend like any of his films.
Okay.
But they're very like A Taste of Cherry pretty much is a guy in his car and there's a camera on the dashboard filming him and then there's a passenger and there's a camera filming them and it's just a static camera. And that's it.
For the whole film?
Yeah. Well,
it's a bottle movie.
Pretty much. There's
cool.
There's a little bit outside of that. But he has made a film that is literally just that. So that's the kind of thing I like. So I'm trying to put that onto Independence Day. So I want...
they're illogical.
So this is what I mean by it's the extreme opposite of Hollywood. Yeah, it's un-Hollywood. So there's not really a plot as such. I want a female lead. So that's very un-Hollywood. I want a strong female lead.
She's presumably a disabled minority female.
No, yeah, exactly. Well, she's Iranian, so I mean, that's
yeah.
So I want to connect it to the original film in some way. So it's gonna take place just after the events of the first film. So there's kind of chaos all around the world, cleanup of dead aliens and things like that. And so this is
just to remind myself, in Independence Day, there's more than one ship
The ships
or
all
spaceship.
over the
They're
world,
all around the world,
They're
right?
all over the most important landmarks.
Okay.
It's fantastic because
Yeah.
they show one over Africa and they've got like these African tribesmen going, and then it's like, and then it goes to Australia and there's like a guy with a cork hat going, oh crikey, bloody aliens in there. It's like the most American view of the world. And there's a guy.
Is there a British man who takes a sip of tea and then spits it out and goes, crikey?
My word, this is terrible.
Someone save the Queen!
They have that, like, when the Americans have figured out how to do, and they're like, they're doing the
Morse
Morse
code,
code
yeah.
thing. They do have like a British officer who's like, by Jove, they've got it.
The bloody Americans will fix the bloody blighters.
That's actually what he says.
So that's exactly what they do.
I don't know why the alien logic of, we will put our ships over the important landmarks that everyone knows, like the Taj Mahal, Big Ben, the White House. It's like, does it really matter?
They really hate tourists. Okay, so our lead character is Benaz. So she's a strong, independent woman, and she's driving around rural Iran. She's trying to help people wherever she can, moving people, moving goods, whatever they need. So with different people who are in the car with her, that's what we see. So she has discussions, like she meets a cross section of Iranian society, and just sort of gets into different philosophical discussions on the nature of alienation, what it is to be other, being ousted from your own home, and things like that, sort of alienation, and being oppressed by outsiders. Obviously, the whole thing's just like a metaphor for American foreign policy, and it will sort of see a great philosophical discussion of alienation, which I think is suitable for aliens. So that's it. Yeah, it's pretty loose because you just sort of put some actors and then you get them talking. So.
Is that what you improv it?
Could she,
to an extent, yeah.
Could she find an alien child amongst
And
the
she
rubble?
sort of, like,
and
bonds
she
with
has to like befriend it and look after it.
Yeah, she could do that. Yeah.
Because then that alien's
That
going to
might be a bit too.
That'd be more marketable.
I think,
I've got
see,
my
you can't
exec
make-
hat on.
No, if it's marketable, I can't do it. I'm afraid.
Could she have a talking animal sidekick?
No.
Does the dog survive?
She runs over a dog for no reason whatsoever.
That'd be the first shot, like beautiful golden retriever.
My title for this is "The Fortress Rocked by the Breeze." That's the sort of title you have for these films. I had my original idea was to do like a sort of 20 years later where
That was,
some aliens had survived and then like
that was basically my original idea, and I thought one of you two would do it, so I didn't.
well,
do it.
the reason I kind of dropped it was because I watched the trailer for the new film and it seemed like a bit too close. Some of the aliens survived in these like pockets of kind of more post-apocalyptic like tribes fighting, and because a lot of the humans had been wiped out by kind of space aids.
I was thinking of doing a film that just kind of explored that world 20 years on with the introduction of all this alien technology and potentially led to like Earth leading itself on an expedition to go and like conquer a planet rich in resources. But then I just figured it'd be too close to potentially what the actual sequel ends up being and your...
I'll be really interested to sort of see if the sequel can actually not just do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Because the aliens were such in the first film, they've got no personality. There's no like they just want to kill everything. I think they have that one dialogue scene where he's got his like tentacle around that guy from Star Trek's neck. And who's coming back in the sequel? But then maybe because like, I mean we're in this era now where I think like Jurassic World and stuff. It's sort of like you can make a reboot and a sequel in the same and a remake all in one package because just repeat similar beats, repeat those key moments, play on people's nostalgia.
Yeah.
Star Wars did it.
They have to address the introduction of this technology and 20 years to play with and explore it, and 20 years with that world knowing that there's the potential for repercussions and people to come back and attack them. And so to make any sense, it's going to have to be a film that is really high concept sci-fi, set in a really high concept sci-fi universe, and that's not at all what the first film is. So it's going to be very interesting to see if they downplay that, as I kind of suspect they will do, or if they embrace it. And is this the first of two films? Am I right in thinking it's the first of a planned attempt at a trilogy?
I don't know that, but it's possible.
Okay, that was certainly the intention a while ago before the project was like officially greenlit. But I don't know if they kept that up after the green light. But...
I think Randy Quaid will be in the sequel. He is out of this world, though.
I'm surprised they brought Bill Pullman back. But...
Well, like, what's he been doing for 20 years?
I'm very excited to see Vivica A. Fox back on the big screen. I don't think I've seen her outside of a 90s film ever.
That's how I feel about Bill Pullman. I like him as the president in everything, and he's one of the weird bits of 90s nostalgia that I can kind of...
Is Judd Hirsch still alive?
Yeah, he's in it.
Oi, vey! The aliens have landed us.
It's always on Independence Day. Why is it never on Yom Kippur? Sorry. Oh my god. Actually, is it going to be set on Independence Day again?
I hope so.
That's the problem with these things. It's like Friday the 13th. Like, it's so contrived. The Halloween films, it's like when you tie the film down to a date, it's really awkward because it's like, well, Michael Myers can go on a killing spree on Halloween 1978, but then we have to wait a whole year before he can do it again.
So that's our take on Independence Day and the sequels. Independence Day Resurgence, is that what it's called?
Yes. It's the most arbitrary. It's the most arbitrary title since Alien vs Predator Requiem. It's like nothing to do with anything.
Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Oh, Christ.
V.
What? I mean, it should have been versus VS.
Yeah. Versus VS.
Versus Superman. Oh no, it's because Batman versus Superman. You'd have to versus Superman. You have that horrible glottal stop in the middle.
Zack Snyder said he just wanted to make it stand out from all the other versus films out there. Anyway,
Independence Day Resurgence will be out this week, I guess, if we've timed this correctly.
which we have. And if we haven't, I'll edit.
No one
this.
will hear that.
If you enjoyed this episode, then there's a pretty good chance you'll enjoy some of the others. Do subscribe and let your opinions be heard by rating and reviewing us on iTunes.
Hi guys, it's me. We pre-record these episodes, and at the time of recording this particular one, we didn't have access to the more recent trailers for Independence Day Resurgence. I just want to acknowledge Jeff Goldblum's delivery of the line, yeah, it's wonderful. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with a different film.
Yeah, do come back because we're doing absolutely fabulous.
Edit as appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for listening. Come back next week. Goodbye.
Bye.